We know a remote farm in Lincolnshire where Mrs. Buckley lives. Every July, peas grow there. Do you really mean that?
Yeah, so in other words, I'd start half a second late.
Don't you think you really want to say July over the snow? Isn't that the fun of it?
If you can make it almost when that shot disappears, it'll make
I think it's so nice that you see a snow-covered field and say every July peas grow there. We know a remote farm in Lincolnshire where Mrs. Buckley lives. Every July, peas grow there. We aren't even in the fields, you see.
Yeah, we aren't.
I don't understand you then. What must be over for July?
When we get out of that snowy field.
When I was out, we were onto a can of peas, a big dish of peas when I said in July.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, always. I'm always past that.
You are?
Yes. Well, that's about where I say in July.
Can you emphasize a bit in July?
Why? That doesn't make any sense. Sorry. There's no known way of saying an English sentence in which you begin a sentence with in and emphasize it. Get me a jury and show me how you can say in July, and I'll go down on you.
9 billion names of pod.
From Atlanta, watch us pull a traffic jam out of our hat.
Again?
Oh, yeah.
It's the 9 billion names of pod with Dan Bauman and Michael Reed. I'm Dan Bauman.
I'm Warlock Poo. Oh, God.
So, let's talk about some stuff.
I hate myself. I just hate myself. Of the Birminghamshire poos.
Poos, yes.
There's a lot of us, and we circulate. If you know what I mean.
Yes. We lost another giant in the last couple of weeks. And a lot of people might not know her name.
Oh, but they know the voices.
But they do know the voices. An actress, and I will just say it like that, or I will say an actor, not just a voice actor, because she was an actor, June Foray.
Yeah, the Betty White of voice talent.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, kind of like ubiquitous everywhere, been around since, hey, why don't we slice that bread? I don't know. Let's try it. Oh, my God, it's wonderful.
Exactly. Probably, it's hard to say what most people would know her from.
Rocky J. Squirrel,
or the witch from Bugs Bunny, or Cindy Lou Who.
Cindy Lou Who from Granny on the Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
And also Betty Rubble.
What? Let me think about it. Is that accurate?
Yeah, she was Betty Rubble.
Oh, I'm thinking Wilma. Wilma was Jean Vanderpool. Okay, yeah. And just a titan of the industry, and literally working up until how long ago till she died?
Maybe about 36 months. According to...
I thought she was still working even later than that.
Well, she had credits up until 2014.
Right.
Now, maybe that's just the credits for the program she was working on. Maybe she could have done more, but I don't know the circumstances around her passing.
Well, she was 99 years old.
You know my rule. If you get past 80, my level of angst drops a bit. It's still sad as hell.
It's very sad.
Of course.
It's very sad.
But it's like, you know what? If you pass 80, you got a full life. And 99, whoa.
Right. And she was working until her 90s. In the last couple of years, they revamped a new Looney Tunes show, which was actually very
And she was fun. Also, she did a voice on DuckTales. I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was.
Yeah, she did voices on everything.
But my jam, the stuff that I love her most for, is her work with Stan Freberg.
Okay.
Back in the day. Just if you don't know Stan Freberg, check out History of the United States of America. There's several box sets. There's video. I mean, Stan Freberg along with, I'm going to say, Ernie Kovacs are just legends that people don't understand how much they owe
everything
to
Ernie Kovacs especially. I mean,
Ernie Kovacs, basically, without Ernie Kovacs, right now would be the golden age of MTV, because it would have taken that much longer for people to understand and get to where Ernie brought things.
Yeah, Ernie Kovacs was one of the first innovators of the art of television.
Oh, yes.
He would do just strange, weird stuff to see what it would be like. Like he would build sets that were tilted, and so the camera would be tilted at the angle of the set, and he would be sitting at a table, and there would be a bowl in front of him. You'd go to pour milk in the bowl, and it would pour down the table, and you couldn't. It really.
He liked to mess with your head
completely.
Just type in Ernie Kovacs, ERNIE KOVACS.
Yeah.
Put it into YouTube. Start watching the clips, and then lament the fact that much of his work was lost.
Yeah,
there's a ton that survived. But there's more that was lost because back in those days it was throwaway TV. No one ever thought about even home video or even rebroadcasting. Once it was done, that was the end of it.
Yeah, it was on and it was over.
That's kind of the stupidity of not keeping tapes or making tapes is not just for the BBC and Doctor Who.
Exactly. And Monty Python
as
well.
Well, most of the Python stuff survives.
But only because they found a trove of it in like 70 or something.
Was that
Germany? Yeah, there was like it was in Germany or somewhere in Europe. They found the tapes did get erased, and they found a broadcast version or something in some television station.
Because I know back in the old days, they would actually, I think they were called kinescopes. They would actually shoot a camera at a television and film what the television was doing.
Right.
It's the same thing as like holding up your phone to the TV to get
or your tape recorder to the TV.
Yeah, exactly. You taped it off the radio, and that's it. So thank God for those
But
people.
that was the only way to record things like the cameras they could record.
Well, if you ever want to have your heart broken, just look into Martin Scorsese's film preservation project and realize that much of America's film history before like 1910, it's like 90% gone.
Yeah,
like nothing survived. That's because if you even looked with a harsh stare at the nitrate film, it would
crumble to dust.
Yeah, well, look at the end of Inglourious Bastards. There's a reason that film went up so well.
Yeah,
they basically were like projecting, fire onto the screen. I mean, it's like if the lamp got a little too hot, the whole projector would burst into flame.
Yeah.
Way to go, Kodak.
Eastman, you bastard.
You bastard. Hey, but June Foray. Come on.
Foray. Yeah.
Just putting her in the proper historical context. She's one of the, I'm going to say, go ahead and say, kind of unsung heroes.
Absolutely.
I mean, doesn't get the respect that, other voice artists.
My favorite quote about her was from Chuck Jones, the famous Warner Brothers animator, and he said that June Foray is not the male Mel Blanc, the female Mel Blanc.
Mel Blanc is the male June Foray. Oh, definitely.
And it's true. Mel Blanc was the biggest name in the industry. And rightfully so. But June was right along with him.
But because she was a female.
And she did every bit as much. Yes, Mel did all the Looney Tunes and stuff.
She did it all in high heels.
Backwards,
yeah, exactly. So,
but I mean, going back to, like you said, the Stan Freberg stuff and all the, and Rocket J. Squirrel alone, all the Rocky and Bullwinkle stuff.
Oh, are you ready for my Rocky and Bullwinkle Yogi Bear crossover joke?
Oh, no. All right. Strap in. All right.
Okay, all right.
Hey there, boo-boo boy. Let's go get some picnic biscuits.
But, Yogi, what about the Ranger?
Hey, fuck the Ranger.
And there you go.
I don't see the Bullwinkle crossover, but okay.
Trust me. It's there.
All right.
It's in there. It's in there. And of course, who in your estimation is the voice artist of the century? Now, keep in mind, of the century, not just who's cool now or was cool maybe 20 years ago. I'm talking in the history of voice work, where you hear like one syllable and you're like, there we go.
I mean, first thought is always going to be Mel Blanc. Is this an opinion or is this?
This is my opinion.
Oh, okay.
Well, I have an opinion. I'd like to hear what your opinion is.
It's hard to say. Of the century? Well, are you counting the last century or this current century?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, the 1900s
like,
to now.
Those voiceovers back in 2008. Yeah, it's like, wow.
Man, hard to say. There's so many. I'm such a voiceover nerd. There's so many of them. I mean, I would go Mel Blanc. What is your opinion?
Paul Frees.
Yeah, Paul Frees, Dawes Butler is one.
It's one of my favorite things to be at Disneyland because his voice is all over the place.
Right.
They're still using the original, voiceover work that he did back in the 50s and 60s there in some place, especially the Haunted
I
Mansion.
want to say, now, was he Meister Burger, or was that
Burgermeister Burger?
Or was that Dawes Butler? Because Dawes Butler was Huckleberry Hound.
Yeah. And Dawes Butler, I think, was another Paul... Stan Freberg
yeah,
alumni.
I believe so. Yes.
It's kind of like the Monty Python of voice work. It's like they went off and did so many other awesome things, like the launching point.
Well, they kind of invented the industry of voiceover actors. I mean, everyone started in radio, obviously.
Well, back when it's like
when it's all it was.
End of scene. Hey, now I'd like a cup of that delicious, Maxwell House coffee. Wow, that's great. I'm going to suck on this Pall Mall and not at all die of cancer in my early 50s. But they took it to where it's like, now a word from the thing and the doing and the touching and
one of my favorite voiceover things that blew my mind was I got a box set of the old Jack Benny show. And Mel Blanc was on it, obviously, and I got really into listening because I love that stuff, and I got really into listening to the Jack Benny show, and the Jack Benny show is brilliant, just in itself, and it's
I don't want to watch no black and white. Come on,
no, I'm talking
man.
about the radio shows. I'm not even talking about the radio shows.
Oh wow, because it did go to television
did.
for a little while,
but it started on the radio, and the radio show had it was Jack and Rochester, his valet, I guess you would call him, and there's other characters on the show, and one of them was Phil, his band leader, and he was like the hep cat, and he was like, "Hey, Jackie boy," this and that, and it was a guy named Phil Harris, and it was only later
Phil Harris
that I realized that's
Baloo
the bear from the Jungle Book.
Well, it's like listening to Schoolhouse Rocks and going, wow, and then realizing these are all accomplished jazz musicians that are legends in their own right. I mean, myself included, a generation got to know Blossom Dearie because of Unpack Your Adjectives or, the other songs that she did along with, good grief, Jack Sheldon and a couple other people that did songs, and it branched out from there. One of the projects I wanted to do for Schoolhouse, for Deep Shag Records, was to do a project called Schoolhouse Rocks, which is to take the creme de la creme of all these jazz musicians' career and their discography, and put it in a compilation CD so that people could listen to some of the great stuff that these people did outside of Schoolhouse Rock.
Right.
Because Blossom Dearie, I traveled to New York just to see her.
You did,
and then she stopped performing 6 months later. Coincidence? Yes, it is.
Absolutely coincidence.
It is. She was very upset that I didn't buy anything at any CDs at the table. You don't understand, Miss Dearie. I own all this.
Yeah.
I own it. As soon as it gets released, I buy it. She's like, I'm like, can I give you a 20? Will that make you feel better? I don't know what to tell you. So.
But the voiceover thing, there was another one too that threw me for a loop.
Thurl Ravenscroft.
Thurl Ravenscroft, yeah, that's another one that you'll notice.
Good old Thurl.
Thurl Ravenscroft. You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. He was also Tony the Tiger.
That is great.
That is great.
Right.
But there was another one. Phil Harris. Also, in the 90s, late 80s, 90s, Disney revamped, which they're revamping again. They were doing a whole Disney afternoon thing where DuckTales showed up.
Yeah.
And it was a bunch of Chippendale
They
Rescue
didn't get
Rangers.
Phil Harris. I think he was dead by then.
He wasn't. That was what I was going to say. They were doing a show called Tailspin, and he was still around.
Was he?
He was, and he was...
Or maybe it's Paul he died of lung cancer, I think, kind of like 80s, 90s somewhere.
Well, that's why they did a show called Tailspin, which was Baloo and Kid Bear and whatever, and he wanted to do it, but I think he was too sick or his voice had changed so much, and they just got a sound alike, I guess.
It's like, hey, Baloo, how come you have emphysema in the jungle? Like,
well, speaking of June Foray, here's a kind of ironic thing. On that Looney Tunes show that they did, most of the characters were done by a comedian named Joe Alasky. He did Bugs and Daffy and Sylvester and Tweety. And
is he kind of like the heir apparent to Mel Blanc? Or
kind of. He was just a comedian who did it in his act, and he wasn't like...
Kind of like Rich Little, like, hey, so-and-so can't do this. Can you come in? And he's a perfect mimic.
Yeah, he just happened to be that guy, with the exception of Maurice LaMarche, who does the Brain from Pinky and the Brain, and he's the guy who does Orson Welles in everything. And anytime you hear, like in That Thing You Do, or was it thing? No, in Ed Wood or whatever, when you hear Orson Welles' voice, that's Maurice LaMarche. He does Yosemite Sam on
Mrs. Snow's frozen peas.
Exactly.
Full of farm freshness and green penis. Wait, that's terrible. I'll just take a few for the road.
And Maurice LaMarche on his, there's a famous tape of Orson Welles drunk.
Oh, doing the
pea commercial.
Yes, that's right. Giving him such a hard...
And Mo does, that's his...
And he's trying to direct the whole thing, like rewrite the script on the fly. Like, why would they be on the farm? It's the winter time. Why would there be people? Why do you talk?
And all the voiceover actors say that whenever they go in and do a mic check, that's what Maurice does every single time. There's a remote farm in deep... Why would I... and he goes... But going back... Joe Alasky, what's really ironic is Joe Alasky started doing the Looney Tunes characters for Warner Brothers, I want to say in the 90s, maybe late 80s and the 90s. But he died like 5-6 years ago. And
remember, folks, if you get into voiceover work, you may die in your early to mid 90s, maybe late. No.
Yeah. Well, Mel died during a recording session for the Jetsons movie. Was it Mel? No, or it was George O'Hanlon, the guy who played George Jetson, died in the middle of a recording session.
You mean the one with the awesome soundtrack from Tiffany?
Right, who played Judy, and everyone was really upset because Katie Milo, who did Judy Jetson, sounded the same and was still alive.
They wanted to bring in the hot talent.
Yeah.
And Tiffany was hot for, I'm going to say, about 8 to 12 months. And then her star went...
Right, and it's always like the Judy Jetson character. Like they got Mel Blanc back to do Elroy. No, Don Messick. I'm sorry, Don Messick was
next
Elroy.
up. Playboy.
But it was ironic because the Looney Tunes show, Joe Alasky and June Foray were on it together, and he died. And she had been on the original in the 40s.
Yeah. Well, that's a great thing about voiceover talent. You can start doing it in when you're 18, and as long as you keep your instrument in you can do it in your 80s.
Yeah. Frank Welker, who does kind of everything, has been Fred on Scooby-Doo since 1968. Or 1969.
Right.
Still doing it.
And I've seen the recent interviews about that time, and he can still do the voice perfectly.
Yeah.
And I think I know the secret. If you're doing an affected voice, then you can keep doing it. But if it's your normal speaking voice, kind of like how we noticed Darth Vader in Rogue One seemed a little bit. That's basically his speaking voice with a little more extra gravitas put in there.
Yeah.
So you could tell the difference.
But if you're talking like this with the stuff in the doing, then you can do it until you die.
Yeah.
Which brings me to one of my favorite voiceover, voice artists working now, Hank Azaria.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Well, all those guys on The Simpsons, him and
Harry Shearer.
Oh God. Yeah, who it's just a shame he's such a lunatic. But him and Dan Castellaneta and Yardley Smith. She only does Lisa, but Nancy Cartwright, who does Bart, she got into voiceover. She like called up Dawes Butler on the phone, like found his name in the thing and asked him how to be a voiceover. He said, "Well, come. I teach classes. Come." So she learned from Dawes Butler. Yeah.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
when
that.
she was like 15 or something.
Wow. And then
she
joined Scientology, and it was all over after that.
And she does. She's been doing Bart Simpson for however many years.
She's been doing a prepubescent boy for, 30 years now?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, but, think about it. The Simpsons. When did Simpsons come on the air? The late 80s.
Yeah.
I mean, the actual TV show in 89, but on
Tracy
Ullman before that,
88.
Well, tell me, Dan's Homer has drastically changed.
Well, he originally started doing it as a Walter Matthau kind of voice.
Oh, wow, that makes perfect. Yes,
that's exactly what it was, and it. Everybody was a little bit. Julie Kavner, who does Marge. It's similar. It's very similar, but they locked it in.
Well, and of course the animation is like, oh, we have a budget now. All right, let's because at least the first season, not the first two, were a little.
And even those were better than the ones on the Tracy Ullman show.
Those were done for
pennies.
Yeah.
Animation's not crazy expensive, but it's not
before,
like really good animation. Is
before the
expensive.
age of computer assist, if you're doing it all by hand, I mean. Anyway, so
but Hank Azaria, he's
my favorite, Professor Frink,
like Professor Frink and Mo.
Oh, the touching and the doing. Oh, pretty lady.
Yeah, I'm such a voiceover nerd. I stalked Maurice LaMarche and Rob Paulson, who does Yakko, and
his name was Rob Paulson.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, come on, dude.
No. You
Fight Club? No.
Oh.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
Did I throw that brick wall at that 90-degree angle there?
You got one by me that I didn't right over the head.
Oh.
Rob Paulson. He's Yakko and Pinky from Pinky and the Brain, and he was one of the original Ninja Turtles, and he's been doing it since the 80s and stuff. And there's been a lot of voiceover guys that come to DragonCon every year.
Oh, yeah. Well, I met one of the ones that I...
Dana Snyder.
Dana Snyder.
Yep, from Aqua Teen.
I felt sad. Then it's like, nobody's lining up for him. He's sitting right there. Fuck, I'm going to go over and talk to him.
My Dana Snyder story was... I went up to him after we had seen the Aqua Teen movie. Remember the Aqua Teen movie? Right. Well, yeah, it was kind of dreadful.
The greatest 3-minute opening of any film ever, and then straight into the toilet.
Pretty much.
I mean, directly into the toilet after that.
With the small exception of the addition of Neil Peart from Rush in his little walking around drum suit. Right. And my interaction with Dana Snyder was kind of... What
was it like working with Neil?
I said, how the hell did they get Neil Peart from Rush into the movie? And he was like, I don't know how they do any of that. That was kind of it.
Yeah, it's like he walks in like, this is what I'm saying? All right. Man, my anger. And then that's it.
He goes and does his stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we both met George Lowe, who does Space Ghost as well.
Well, you not together, though. I met him.
No, you met him in like a grocery store, right?
The checkout line at Publix. And the only reason I knew it was him because just the day before, they ran the episode of Space Ghost called Table Read, which had them reading the parts around the table. And I was like, "Oh my God, that's the guy who does Space Ghost," and I recognize him. And, and he sent me. I gave him my address, and he sent me a thing. And then I sent back a thank you with like, "Hey, I have a record label. Would you like to do some kind of a comedy project?" And never heard from him. I'm like, all right.
It's funny. He does at DragonCon every year. He does I guess just a little. It's not really a panel. It's just like a half-hour block, and it's always called Stories with Uncle George. And he just goes in and does kind of stand-up comedy, and he riffs on people in the crowd, and it's fun. It's funny. But what's kind of funniest about it is that his cultural references stop at about 1975. He makes like Marty Allen and Firesign Theater jokes.
Oh, wow.
Which do not go over well with anybody younger than us.
Wow. I mean, and even The only reason I know anything about Firesign Theaters is through Harry Shearer.
Right.
Because I'm such a huge fucking fan of Spinal Tap, and I've, spread out and, yes, if it wasn't for Spinal Tap, I would also be completely ignorant of Firesign Theater. And let's face it, it's not the greatest stuff.
No, I've only heard a little tiny bit of it.
It's kind of trying to be politically edgy American version of Monty Python in a way.
Kinda.
I mean, but not. Yeah, it's just.
So.
Oh, George. like the old security guard at the back room's like, ha ha. The entire audience is like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Right. They literally, I mean, it's just crickets. Like, people are laughing, but it's that kind of like, I don't know why that's funny.
I feel I should laugh here, so I'm going to.
His delivery is good enough, though, that people laugh.
Right. He sells it. He sells the material.
It really well, but, I'm laughing on two levels because what he said was funny, but it's even funnier to me that no one else gets that joke at all. No one knows who Marty Allen is.
Oh my gosh, who is Marty Allen?
He was, Marty, of course.
We love our voiceover people, but hey, what else? What else?
Well, speaking of voiceovers, I've been very excited that we finally. We're on episode 3 tonight. We finally get Rick and Morty back.
Oh, but you've got it from the beginning.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I've seen all of it. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to piss on him? Get out of my head.
Get out.
Oh my God. I'm like going, nope, the edge is still there. And it is razor sharp.
Razor sharp.
Oh my God.
My favorite part about was when they released the first episode of season 3.
Like 3 months ago?
April Fool's Day.
Was that it?
It was April Fool's Day.
Just to shut people up because people were like...
the tag on the video just said, now leave us alone.
That was what, the Rick Shank Redemption?
Rick Shank Redemption, yeah. Where he was still in space prison! And Nathan Fillion was the giant bug who was interrogating.
I'm
gonna go take a shit.
I am so pumped for the new Rick and Morty tonight.
Yeah, tonight's Pickle Rick, isn't it?
Pickle Rick,
Pickle
man.
Rick!
Oh my gosh, hashtag pickle fucking Rick.
If you haven't watched Rick and Morty, it is... Stop
this podcast right now and go watch 2...
It's all on the Adult Swim app and it's all on Hulu. So go watch Rick and Morty.
And if you don't like it, then don't come back to this podcast because obviously you've been watching it out of what? Obligation?
Yeah.
Because Rick and Morty, I put it up there as probably one of the 3 best cartoon things ever done in the history. I mean, just the writing. I mean, it's not like it's the artistry of Fantasia. It's like no. There's artistry in animation, and then there's some sick joke writing.
Yeah.
And the great thing about Rick and Morty, you're laughing your ass off, and then they gut punch you with like a really solid human truth, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
oh, that is us buried in the backyard.
If you've never seen it, it is basically Doc Brown and Marty.
Yes,
that's kind of how it started.
If they were related,
and
dial Doc Brown from curmudgeonly fumbling at like a 3 to psychotically
alcoholic genius, smartest man in the universe.
Crank it up to like not 11, like 47,000.
Just an asshole, like on purpose. To everything.
He does the right thing. It's like, all right, I guess.
Yeah, he's not above leaving Morty.
Right. He's like, I got Mortys all over in other dimensions. It's like, I'll pick up another Morty in, Galaxy 472.
You got you got a coupon for a free Morty.
Exactly. Oh my God. Well, don't want to give it away, but are we still dealing with the original Morty and Rick? Nah.
I read a whole article on the timeline, and it's kind of is and it kind of isn't. We're like kind of 3 Ricks, like it's the original consciousness of Rick, and that one episode it just jumped to, so we're not really.
And you know who we have to thank for Rick and Morty?
Two guys, really.
Right. But the one that's more the face of the thing.
Well, Dan Harmon.
Dan Harmon.
From Community.
From Community, exactly.
It's written by a guy named Justin Roiland, who does Rick and Morty's voices. But Dan Harmon is kind of the showrunner behind it. You know,
he's the conceptual artiste, kind of holding the whole thing together.
Yeah,
something like that.
Which explains why Joel McHale was on was the guy with the bucket on his head in last week's episode,
and also explains why Chevy Chase has not made an appearance yet.
Right.
Probably never. Well, not probably never will. Never will. Full stop.
In one of the episodes, there's a 1 second gag where they're watching Rick hooks up the cable to the infinite universes.
Yeah.
And they swap to one channel, and it is Community from some different dimension. It's like one quick where they turn around, but you can obviously tell it's Community.
Yeah, you've kind of passed your comedic prime. I don't understand these jokes. They're not funny, and then you get kicked off your own show. Because that was like a Chevy Chase vehicle in a way.
I guess it was kind of,
it was definitely ensemble, but he was like, not necessarily the tentpole actor, but he was a name.
He was the name.
That got, oh, Chevy Chase is coming back to sitcom television back on NBC.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll pick it up.
Right.
And all of a sudden they realize, we don't really need Chevy at all.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And nobody liked him.
Right. And all they did was make fun of him in the show.
Yeah.
Like, constantly.
Which is weird. It's like, you do understand that you are not your character, right?
But that's the problem. He kind of is,
Well,
there are legendary stories of the Comedy Central roast of Chevy Chase where he didn't get it. Like, he didn't understand why people were saying such shitty things about him.
Well, he didn't understand the concept of a roast?
Yeah, or, he didn't realize it was going to just be what it was.
Those things are brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be completely sure of yourself to be able to endure that.
They say it was kind of a disaster because he's such a narcissistic lunatic that he didn't get what was going on.
Ooh.
So he's hard to he's kind of legendary.
I mean, I've watched a good number of those.
Yeah.
And, wow. Some of those jokes, I mean, it's like, hey, too bad your son's oh, that's right, he died.
Yeah.
And I'm like going, and he, I think Gilbert Gottfried got in trouble for a 9/11 joke at one of those roasts or something along those lines, but it was like 4 days afterwards or something.
He got busted for there was a tweet about
was it tweet?
It was a tweet for he got fired from the Aflac Duck, speaking of voiceover, for a tweet about, I want to say, the Fukushima disaster. Because it was something like, the tsunami, that's what it was. Because it was something like, a...
There you go.
It was something like, if you need another Japanese person, just wait a second, they'll come floating by, or something. It was the tsunami. And it was... It's in poor taste, and it's innocuous, but it was like this firestorm of how dare he. But it's like, he's a fucking comedian.
Exactly.
That's his job.
But here's the thing. I am absolutely 100% for the First Amendment and absolutely no censorship. However, that doesn't protect you from people going, what the fuck? And if you're being employed by a company that can fire your ass for it, maybe you should censor yourself. Just saying.
You have the right to say that.
The First Amendment stops the government from putting you in prison for saying something. It doesn't stop the Aflac company from going, bad taste, you're fired.
Yeah, exactly.
So know your audience, but may include the people that are paying you money to say Aflac.
You can
literally, you got one word. That's your, you just go, rah, 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 Aflac.
Yeah.
That is, like, what's the script for today? It's Aflac.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
You yell it for, a half hour and make a lot of money.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe you might want to, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
but you know what? If he knew that going in and was prepared to lose it for the joke, I'm like, you know what? Then good for you, man.
Yeah.
If I had that kind of cushy job, I'd say, you know what? that's worth me not saying that one joke.
Right. And it wasn't a political statement. It was just a joke on Twitter.
Right. But there's been other stuff where you're like, and some of those roasts are just just brutal to the point where, the death of your own child. That's been 6 months. It's okay now.
Yeah.
That never stops being, and they go there.
Yeah, they do.
They go there.
It's kind of understood, and they said that was kind of the problem with Chevy Chase. He didn't realize that it was going to be that, and he didn't understand, and he thought he was being honored for something.
Well, yeah, it is an honor. They don't get together and roast some idiot that just
they don't like.
They don't like, your work's been mediocre, but now let's roast you anyway.
Yeah.
No, they roast, or someone who they think will be fun to roast. Let's face it, Donald Trump got a roast.
Yeah, nobody cares. That's the one problem with those roasts is that they've gotten watered down.
Well, it's the comedy centralization of those roasts. Now, there's those roasts in the '70s with Dean Martin and stuff that. The films exist. They don't get broadcast. You buy those as home videos.
Yeah.
And you hear Dino talking in a way that you never hear him actually in public or in any of his roles or anything like that.
Right.
And that's where stuff gets, brutal. Who's the greatest roaster ever? Come on, say it.
Rickles?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Rickles.
Yeah, we lost him a couple.
We did. We lost Rickles, and man, that really made Jimmy Kimmel. Him and Jimmy Kimmel got to be really good friends. He choked up on air over that. I'm like,
well, he was on one of those. He did a talk show appearance a couple of weeks before.
Yeah,
it was like Jimmy Fallon.
Apparently he had been begging, to get Rickles on for years, and he finally did it, and he was like, all right, this is fine. And then he showed up more often. So Anyway. What else is going on, Dan? Oh, Rick and Morty, see it. Just see it. Trust me, see it.
Yeah, just watch him. You will thank us.
Oh, yes. And if you don't, then stop listening to this podcast.
Okay, here's a really tenuous segue. Okay, we were talking about the Comedy Central roast because we were talking about Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase was on a show called Community.
Yeah.
Who else was on that show?
Allison
Brie, who is now in a show called Glow on Netflix. There, I did it.
Well done, sir.
Thank you.
Well done. You're like Indiana Jones on the way to the Grail. Like you step there, and you made it.
Yes. We finished Glow last night. Now, when you and I were kids back in the late 1800s, there was a show syndicated called Glow. The Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling.
Farmer's daughter, farmer's daughter, farmer's daughter, farmer's daughter.
I am almost embarrassed at how much of that I kind of remember.
I remember almost none of it except the farmer's daughter. It's like, there would be like the Scooby-Doo and something hour.
Yeah.
And they almost never had... what was the sequence I was waiting for? Or no, it was Croft Superstars, and I was waiting for a Wonder Buggy episode, and it would always be something else.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, it would be Wonder Buggy.
For me, it was Sigmund and the Sea Monsters.
Yeah.
So it's same thing, yeah.
So for Glow, it'd be like, all right, this episode, Farmer's Daughter, no Farmer's Daughter. Next, oh my God, it's the Farmer's Daughter.
Right. It was wrestling. It was ladies wrestling, syndicated, cheeseball,
badly acted
characters.
Well, let's face it, it's what professional wrestling is today with like more, shall we say, or less testosterone.
Yes, absolutely, more estrogen,
more estrogen, less testosterone, something
and
like that.
As a prepubescent boy, it was the greatest thing you've ever seen.
Oh my God, I could see at least 3 inches above her kneecap.
And it was. Not stereotypes, like
well, it was stereotypes.
Yeah,
the farmer's daughter was kind of vapid,
and there was like terrorists, and
yes.
I'm trying to remember. There was like
I don't remember the KKK episode. Well, more on that in a minute.
Yeah. So it was. I want to say Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon.
That rings true. That rings true.
And they did
which is weird. Like the cartoons would end around 10 in the morning, 10 or 11, and then all of a sudden it would switch over from ages 2 to 8 to like 15 and above, like just like that.
Yeah, and then for us, when we knew it was time to go outside when Soul Train came on, because I was like, "Oh, cartoons are."
Oh no, I would stick around for Soul Train.
Well,
Hell yeah, Soul Train.
So on Netflix, I guess a couple months ago, they released a show called Glow, and it's kind of a dramatization about the creation. It's a fictionalized version.
The first season is basically from the audition to being Glow to the first episode of Glow.
To the first episode of Glow.
What they had to go through, the pitfalls, the problems,
right.
The robots with the drugs inside of them.
How it goes from
Mark Maron trying to screw his dog. No, what?
Mark Maron plays Sam.
Emmy.
I mean,
Emmy.
Are you kidding?
I don't know the field well enough to say he has to get the award, but he damn well better get a nomination.
Absolutely.
Oh, my
Without
God.
a doubt.
The thing is, though, it's Mark Maron.
That's the thing.
He's not acting like, wow, Mark Maron's acting very well. Like he's being Mark Maron.
He's being Mark Maron from the 80s.
Right.
That's exactly
the
who
award
he was.
goes to, you cast him in this role. Is there a casting awards? Because
yes.
you cast the perfect actor for this award.
He plays Sam, the producer, who's a schlock B-movie... C and D movie director who thinks he's making all this like important shit, and he's an 80s cokehead.
Well, I think probably a holdover from the 70s.
Well, yeah, at that point, yeah, because he's like 50 something.
Hey, but he did think of Back to the Future. What, 5-6 years after it actually happened?
Yeah,
so.
the year. Yeah, he had thought about it before it came out, and
Mothers and Lovers.
Mothers and Lovers. Yeah, and it's basically the story of Alison Brie, who makes a really bad mistake, really bad choice, which fucks up her friendship with an actress friend of hers. They're both actresses. Her friend was on a soap opera, and she's a struggling actress who can't get booked anywhere.
Like she's friends with like a somewhat successful
actress
who left the
opera.
show, and then she got pregnant. So
but
let's not give too much of it away.
Right, but they end up together on the show, and it's a fascinating.
It's a good ensemble piece because we delve a little bit into everyone else's character's backstory a little bit. It reminds me of the same storytelling technique used in Orange is the New Black.
Okay.
In that you see something happening now as they're getting ready to do Glow, and then they flash back and you realize, oh, that's why they're like that, because that happened to them when they were a kid, or happened to them 2 years ago, or so it's a storytelling technique that I really, really enjoy because it gives you the ability to expand the characters in the present tense, and as opposed to having them go through some transformation on the show, you see them post-transformation, and you get to see what happened back then that brought them to where they are now. It's complex. You got to keep track of all this stuff. I hope there's someone's got a Bible out there, and they're keeping track of every character's arc and what they've done and haven't done. Because I think there's 12. I think it's 12 women, 12 or 13, because there was the trainer girl.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Something like about a dozen women.
Yep.
And we have the terrorist and the wolf lady,
the
real wolf. I mean, I like that character. She's
the she-wolf.
The she-wolf. Yeah, the old biddies, the old
biddies.
And I don't know. I haven't done any research back on the original Glow, because all my memory is as Farmer's daughter, and I was looking for it in the first episode. Like, well, she could kind of be
from
Farmer's
what I understand,
daughter.
They're approximations. They're not the exact.
Okay.
They're not the exact actor. They're not the exact people. It's not like a biopic. It's more of a dramatization, and so there are like similar characters. There was like a terrorist type character, and there was a Samoan character, and there was
which was very interesting. Oh, and of course the Russian,
Russian,
which again is in vogue now.
Oh yeah,
as an evil character.
Yeah,
you know,
it's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
how it...
and of course, you know, the terrorists back then, it was all very removed. You know, like I do terrorism. Yeah, whatever terrorism. Now it's oh shit, that's happening here.
Yep.
You know, hey, America pays attention when it happens to us.
Absolutely.
But when it happens to brown people in other countries, yeah. Way to go, America.
Yeah, suck it, America.
But but I tell you, in the first, I'm going to say the first 15 minutes of the first episode, you know who I felt very happy for?
Who?
Questlove.
Why?
Questlove is deeply in love with Alison Brie. Has made no.
Really?
He tells us he met her, and he just pulled into himself. He's like, okay, whatever, you know, like got shy. He has a thing for Alice, like
really?
You would not believe. Yeah,
interesting.
And as soon as Allison was naked, I went, oh, that'll be nice for Questlove.
I was kind of surprised at how much nudity there was in the show. There's
really, it's only in the first episode.
No, there's a couple of Allison. Yeah,
they
knocked
out the Alison Brie nudity in the first episode.
Right.
And I was like, oh, it's going to be one of those shows. It turned out not to be, which is good. I mean, because there's not really too many places where it's like, if it was every episode, they're in the locker room and they're half naked, I'd be like, really? Do we need that?
That's not what that show would
No, it's not. Thank God. Because if it was just...
Because that would have diminished it.
Oh, this would have been awful. And I'm pretty sure the actress that's playing... The one that's following around Mark Maron...
The young one?
Yeah. She does not look like she's even 18. I'm sure she probably is.
Oh, she's probably 22.
Yeah, but she looks like she could be 15 in that show.
Yeah,
and that would have been awkward.
Yeah.
So thankfully they maybe that's what it needed to sell the project. Like, all right, Allison will get her kid out. All right, we'll greenlight it. You know, you never know.
I don't know.
I hope not, because the storytelling and everything is solid.
Yeah,
you don't need nudity at all.
Right, and her scene was actually necessary. It was kind of a big.
Well, yeah, it's the linchpin of the whole first season.
The whole first season.
You know, so. Well done. That's our way of quietly saying to the guys, hey, Allison's naked, might enjoy that, and stick around for really good storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. And the characters, like you said, they're great. I love the Machu Picchu. The she was wonderful.
That's a nice little B storyline. I'm like, nice.
Yeah, she's her family are all wrestlers, and they didn't want her to go into that, and she finally, gets up the nerve to do it. And it's a great little moment. You know?
I'm going to go work down in the mines. Why, no, you're going to write proofs like I do.
I've been to more gala luncheons and you've had hot dinners. One of my favorite Python sketches. Yeah, it's a really good. It was like 10 episodes, 12 episodes, and they're pretty short. They're only like 35 minutes apiece.
Oh no, I think they're the full 48 to 52. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, but it's
like 10 or 12. And last I checked, it had not been greenlit for renewal.
That surprises me.
That does surprise me,
because it got a lot of buzz when it started.
We'll see. It's not like there's a ton of money. There's no special effects. It's just acting and sets.
Yeah, other than like old cars and sets and some period
true.
stuff. But I mean, it's not
depends on. I don't know what their producing partner is, but if they're, I think Glow is one of the shows that Netflix, quote unquote, it's a Netflix original, but it's done by another studio and released under their Netflix original banner.
Probably, yeah.
So the major studios have fleets of old cars and backlot stuff and costumes and stuff.
What I've been meaning to do. Well, I only finished it last night, but go on Mark Maron's podcast and see. I'm sure he's done an episode with Alison Brie, and I'm sure he's done with the producers.
I need to remind myself to get onto YouTube and watch some of the old Glow clips. There's got to be some on there.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah. And of course, if this thing goes to second season and continues to be as popular as it is, who knows? They're not going to do like season 1 of Glow, but they might do like a best of, DVD that shows you.
I'm sure it'll get a resurgence of people like, being, what is this?
Yeah, exactly.
What the original was.
Yeah. People go, wow. So there was a dark side to the 80s, huh? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this isn't it. There was way more darker stuff than that.
Well, Reagan was president, and
and cocaine was everywhere.
Yeah. Hey, let's sell weapons to the Iranians. The Iranians. Yeah. Let's see which party has sold weapons to the Iranians. Let's see, Democrat? No. Yeah. Republic? Oh yeah, there was that time.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway. Anyway, speaking of horrible, brutal things, let's talk about The Dark Tower.
Yeah,
haven't seen it. Now, I'm speaking totally based upon what I have heard.
Yeah,
But people are not happy.
Well, I've heard that people are not impressed. Like, there's just nothing there.
Well, from what I can gather, if you have read the books, this will be a horrible disappointment to you. If you have no idea what's going on and go in there, it's a great 90 minutes of film. We have read the books.
Yes.
So, going to be like, no, wrong. Apparently, they're pulling from the first 3 books, and they can only squeeze out 90 minutes.
That's insane.
Well, I'm wondering if the studio went, yeah, if we were to do this, we'd have to do like part 17 to finish the whole thing movie-wise. So we're going to try to condense, which sometimes, if they've got an arc of a trilogy, okay,
but you can't.
But 90 minutes for part 1? What is wrong with you?
Yeah. We got 2 movies for the fucking Hobbit. I mean,
yes, exactly. I mean, and that's a little children's book. That's that's an afternoon read almost. That's not, Return of the King, and that's a wait. The Lord of the Rings, all 3 books. I mean, you can murder a man with that thing.
Yeah,
it's a heavy duty.
Yeah, and the Dark Tower is 3 times the size of Lord of the Rings.
But having not seen it, can't prejudge. But from what I understand, for people that have read, the books, you're just going to be hating it.
Yeah, I'm every trailer that came out was like, when are you going to like the first time was like, okay, that's cool, and then they didn't get any better. I was like, I don't see anything in this at all. I'm still so for Idris Elba as Roland. I'd watch that guy be anybody.
Oh, listen, I mean, if I hate the film because it cuts out so much stuff, I'm sure as hell not going to blame any of the actors.
I just mean, I was so behind it, and now it's like, I don't know if I want to even see it. I'm so...
Yeah. Say, we were thinking about maybe in the next couple weeks going to see them, thinking, maybe Dunkirk, maybe Valerian.
Yeah.
Everyone says it Valerian basically like rapes your senses. It's so immersive and so gorgeous. It makes Avatar
frenetic, yeah.
Makes Avatar look like a flip book. And I'm like, okay.
Well, conversely, with the Dark Tower looking so kind of flimsy, it keeps looking better and better and better.
Yeah. It's a 2-hour, 15-minute run?
Something like that.
Yeah. Nice.
And that's half the book, technically.
Yeah, they're doing it the right way.
They're doing it the right way.
And really, the way the book was designed, it's the kids, then the adults.
Yeah.
So they're doing the kids first, obviously.
Yep.
It's nothing about it has made me go, oh, that's a bad choice. Every choice seems like they're doing it right. They're making it more contemporary. They're shifting it up 20 years.
Yeah.
So the adults are going to be adults now.
Yeah.
So back then it'll be the 80s.
Yeah.
Or 90s, early 90s. I don't know but basically it'll be something that people now can relate to a lot more than
the 50s.
It was the 50s, right?
To the 70s.
Because the monsters back then, the Wolfman and the Mummy and Frankenstein.
Right.
Today's audience would be like,
yeah,
whatever.
Exactly. Those aren't scary.
Now, who knows if I don't know what studio is doing this. Castle Rock probably.
Castle Rock, but somebody else. Yeah.
Did they get the license to bring in Freddy, Jason, the monsters from our youth?
Right, maybe,
possibly. I don't know. It's all very And the more I see Pennywise, at first I was like, and I'm like, yeah,
that's fucking scary.
Yeah, that's fucked up right there.
Yeah, it's kind of fucked up.
Yeah. So and we're about a month away.
Is it?
It's September, I want to say 9th.
Okay.
Something like that. So,
and it's funny because...
September. I think it opens September 7th at midnight.
Okay.
So
well, I'm not doing a midnight show, but I probably won't be able to.
You have Fridays off. Come on. Come on, do it.
Well,
yeah, but I don't have Fridays off.
There you go. Yeah, I've already been told, you can go see that one without us. Without me, with Courtney.
Oh, good.
Yeah, she's like, I might want to see the Dark Tower. No, I'm not doing that clown movie.
Oh, I'm doing the clown
movie. Because, I read the book and watched the series.
Oh, yeah.
She said she watched the series when it was on, and it freaked her out as a kid. So it was like,
and that's like ABC 20 years ago.
Right.
When damn, like you're allowed one damn.
Right.
Now it's like you say everything but fuck.
Yeah. And
except fuck.
Except
you can't say but fuck.
Right. And there's a couple scenes in the book that, like, there's a heavy... I don't know if they're doing that.
There's... you were talking about the gathering of children,
yes.
Shall we say?
Yes.
There's a way that they can get that kind of bonding together in another to affect that kind to in another way.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it there.
Yeah. It's a little...
I mean... reading it as a kid, I was like, ooh, scandalous, but okay, because it made perfect sense in the context of the story.
Right, but to actually do that on film is tough.
Well, you can allude to anything.
Yes, but alluding to it, but actually doing it, showing it is like...
Well, no, they would never show it,
exactly.
But they would allude it. Now, whether they'll even allude to it...
That's the question.
We're talking in people who have read the book speak, so bear with us if you haven't.
Yeah.
But there are other ways to have an experience that creates that bond that takes them into their adulthood without doing that. Or they could just allude to it and then move on.
And then it happened.
Yeah, because not everything has to happen right on screen. Not everything has to be explained. The only requirement I have for the It films, and this will happen in part 2, is to change that fucking ending.
We'll see.
If that will ruin... As much as I probably will love part 1, if they keep that same ending in part 2, it will taint the entire experience for me.
We'll see.
It's a cop-out. It's a cop-out.
Yeah.
I mean, King, I'm sorry. You're a genius 95% of the way, and then you're just like, oh, deadline. I got to get this in 3 days.
I don't know.
Total cop-out, and I'm done.
Right.
Not that I have an opinion about it or anything.
Right.
So we'll see. We'll see. Now, one of the interesting things, at least I remember from the book, is that...
it's been so long since I read it.
Well, very few things stick in my head, but one of them was there was a marquee in the book that had nothing but dead artists that were like, tonight, live, and it was all dead performers.
Oh, right.
This is one of the illusions that Pennywise would do to to mess with your head.
Yeah.
And I tell you, it hasn't happened yet, but the dead artist that I'd like to see die and then show up on that marquee is...
Medication time. Medication time.
Oh, we ran out of time. I'll tell you in 2 weeks.
The 9 Billion Names of Pod was conceived, written, and performed by Michael Reed and Dan Bauman, with Abdul Benny Hassan as the sound of splintering wood. Research, transportation, and exasperated looks by Courtney Lohner. Technical assistance by Cubase, Pro Tools, Skynet, QLab, Deep Thought, Big Brother, and Eddie, your shipboard computer. Financial consideration provided by the Wayne Foundation, Stark Industries, the Piranha Brothers, and Lexhorn. Legal counsel by the offices of Howard, and Fine.
Beep, beep, Rocky, we all float down here.
Our intro music was written by Tim Akers. This podcast was sponsored by Deep Shack Records and the production of Audio Primate. Throw us a couple stars on iTunes, why don't you? Listen, watch on YouTube, listen on SoundCloud, stream us on Stitcher, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, or email us comic@billionpod.com. Until this happens again, I'm Dan Bauman.
I'm Michael Reed.
Hello, Z!
Audio Primate.